Oh, it's close. I know there's a lot of traffic out there, particularly coming from Southall and going past Hanwell. So I think we are quorate, so I am going to start on time for those that did get here on time. So we are at 7 o'clock now. Okay, right. We are live. Okay, so welcome to the Planning Committee on Wednesday, the 18th of January. We have one item on the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Busuttil. So any apologies for absence? I know substitutions, Councillor Busuttil is substitution for Councillor Ball because he's on time. Any apologies for absence? I know we've got two councillors that may appear because of traffic, etc. I'm not entirely sure, but if they appear before we start the debate, then they can join in. If we started the debate, they cannot join in and cannot vote. Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, thank you. Just a bit confused because Joel's there and he's there. So I just want to understand. He's on the screen and he's here. So I just want to understand why.
See that computer in front of him?
Okay, no,
right.
that's I want to be clear. But I don't think that's normally the case. That's all. So people at home will see a screen and they'll see him here. I don't. Is it always like that?
Just to clarify that, so planning officer can share their screen.
Thank you. Thank you. That was the question. Thank you.
Okay, so we go on. Urgent matters. I'm not aware of any urgent matters. Any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Matters to be considered in private. I'm unaware of any. Nope, no one's indicating. Minutes for the last meeting. Do we have to approve a correct record of last minutes? Are we agreed? We agreed. Thank you. Site visit attendance. Let me try and remember. So Councillor Anand, Councillor Busuttil, Councillor Brett, Councillor Rice, Councillor Sahota, myself, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Bransar, Councillor Shaw, and Councillor Gordon. I think that's right, isn't it? Anyone I've got wrong or we had apologies from you, Councillor Kumar? Oh, all right then. I thought you did. Well, I was aware you weren't coming, so.
Councillor Kumar, you sent me your apologies.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay. It's okay. Right. So we've only got one application in front of us tonight because Sherwood Close has been withdrawn from the committee papers. So we go on to planning application, Singapore Road. Someone's got their hand up. Councillor Anand. I'll say this again. No, they won't be able to vote. Okay, Joel, we do not have any speakers on this, so we go straight to the officer to present the land at Singapore Road and Greenman Lane.
Good evening, members. I present to you this evening a hybrid planning application for the redevelopment of Phase 4 of the Greenman Lane estate. A hybrid planning application is an application that constitutes development consisting of both full details and outline elements. With this in mind, full details have been submitted for the construction of 2 blocks ranging in height from 5 to 16 stories to accommodate 396 units and community use space on the ground floor of blocks D3 and C4. Outline planning permission is sought for the creation of community use space on the land to the west of Romsey Road. This phase represents the final phase of the Greenman Lane estate development with Phase 6 currently under construction. Members of the committee should also be aware of the amended recommendation contained within the briefing note to reflect the likely design changes that will be necessary to address new fire safety regulations for buildings over 30 metres. The implications of these changes have been outlined within the briefing note and will be addressed within this presentation. Planning permission was first given in 2010 for the redevelopment of Greenman Lane Estate. The estate originally accommodated 464 units, and the original permission proposed 706 residential units. The image shown reflects one of the parameter plans for the estate, with heights for phase 4 generally ranging from 6 to 9 stories. And if you can follow my cursor, I'm generally circling the location of phase 4 on this particular plan. A subsequent permission in 2015 expanded the area of the master plan to include phases 6, 5, and part of phase 4 of the estate. Phase 6 is currently under construction, and phase 5, which includes the school, has been completed, and the red line denotes the application site. Since the approval of these permissions, the emerging pattern of development has evolved and involved the approval of and construction of taller buildings within the vicinity of the application site. Therefore, the site presents the opportunity to optimise the site to deliver housing, including affordable housing, in a desirable and central location close to services, amenities, and public transport. Part of the original permission required the reprovision of community space within the estate, which included the Greenman Lane Community Centre, Jubilee Hall Children's Centre, and Dean Hall. The community centre is currently housed within a temporary structure on the estate. Jubilee Hall Children's Centre is also in a temporary structure in Drayton Green, and Dean Hall is proposed to be demolished and currently exists on the site. The proposal would ultimately result in an uplift in community floor space, complying with both the original permission and current planning policy with respect to social infrastructure. The outline part of the application refers to the reprovision of Dean Hall within the site. The exact design and form of the proposed community space is not yet known, and therefore all matters in respect to this application are reserved, and we require the submission of a reserved matters application. This outline permission would nevertheless secure the reprovision of Dean Hall. Part B of Policy D9 of the London Plan, as well as Ealing Council's draft local plan, outline that tall buildings should be located on allocated development sites within the borough. Whilst the proposal is not strictly in accordance with this requirement, townscape and visual impact assessment has been carried out in accordance with Part C of this policy, Policy D9. This assessment includes short, long, and medium range views of the development and has been scrutinised by council officers and the Greater London Authority. The site was also involved in a comprehensive pre-application process and consideration by a design review panel. The design of the buildings themselves show a good amount of variation and articulation within their design, with the use of both projecting and inset balconies, different brick tones within each of the blocks, and defined bases, middle, and tops on the higher elements of the scheme. At the same time, the overall design of the proposed development shares consistency with the overall appearance of the other earlier stages of the Greenman Lane estate. The results of the assessment show that whilst the building would be a prominent addition to the West Ealing townscape, the proposal would be consistent with the emerging character of West Ealing. The design of the proposed building is also considered to be of high quality, adopting the requirements of London Plan Policy and Council's housing design guidance with respect to tall buildings. So the images on your screen now are showing obviously the existing situation if we're standing in towards the centre of Dean Gardens and what it would look like with no other development occurring. And this is what the emerging context showing consented schemes within the area. The Maitland Gardens obviously partially under construction, as we saw on the site visit. The townscape assessment also includes views from designated heritage assets, as well as the Ealing Magistrates Court, which is a local heritage asset, which were also scrutinised and considered to be, and it was considered the proposed development would constitute less than substantial harm in accordance with NPPF tests, with the public benefits of the proposal significantly outweighing any harm. Here's another view from the Ealing Green Conservation Area on Mattock Lane with the St John's Church to the right. So this shows again the development, the site as existing, the view towards West Ealing, what it would look like under the current circumstances, and then again within the emerging context of the area. The development would provide a good mix of housing across the estate. Whilst tenures would be split into separate blocks, there would be no architectural distinction between different housing tenures, ensuring that development would provide for a cohesive and inclusive community. The original estate had 464 homes, However, the original housing stock was skewed heavily in favour of one-bedroom homes. On an estate-wide basis, whilst the proposal will result in loss of number of units within social rent tenure, there will be an overall uplift in floor space within social rent, which is compliant with policy H8 of the London Plan. This policy requires that the loss of existing housing should be replaced by new housing at existing or higher densities with at least the equivalent level of floor space. And as you can see on those two tables, the areas in bold show that increase. In terms of the affordable housing provision within this phase alone, the proposal will deliver a total of 183 homes, with a mix of types of housing, including family housing. There will be 129 homes within the affordable rent tenure and 54 within shared ownership. This represents a tenure split of 72% affordable rent and 28% shared ownership. This is considered to be a good quality housing offer. It's also consistent with both the current Ealing Development Management DPD as well as the draft local plan. The development also provides housing that's compliant with internal space standards and private amenity space standards. The proposal also represents a significant improvement to the access strategy of the original master plan. Original versions of the master plan showed a vehicular connection from Greenman Lane up to Felix Road, which overemphasised private motor vehicle use. The revised access strategy significantly improves accessibility throughout the site by connecting existing and proposed communal spaces of the various stages of the development and creates a green link throughout the site that is centred around a central square framed by proposed buildings rather than roads. Council officers and GLA are very supportive of this revised strategy. Communal space and public realm would also be integrated into the development, which includes a public square adjoining the community space within Block D3, as well as spaces within each block for residents, so communal amenity space. Children's play space will be integrated well into the development, catering for both younger and older age groups from 0 to 15 years old. Whilst there are shortfalls within the scheme, as outlined by Policy 7D, the spaces and play space would be fit for purpose, and shortfalls will be made up through financial contributions to local parks and play facilities. Energy matters have been addressed within the committee report, which includes a requirement for a decarbonisation strategy within the blocks to adopt additional sustainable energy measures to reduce carbon emissions when options for these become available. This is the central courtyard of Block C, showing children's play space and the amenity space. Transport matters have also been reviewed within the report with respect to car parking provision and cycle parking. Whilst TfL have raised some concerns with the amount of car parking, the development needs to accommodate existing residents that may have the benefit of an existing resident parking permit. Further details will be required in the allocation of these spaces and within the development, and measures to reduce car parking spaces where demand no longer exists. The proposal would also not compromise the delivery of the West Ealing Livable Neighbourhoods project, which is at an early design stage within council. As was detailed on the site visit and outlined within the briefing note, the government is undertaking consultation on a proposal for all buildings above 30 metres in height, provide for 2 staircases, which was announced on 23rd of December 2022, and it's in addition to fire safety lift requirements. The requirement has also been adopted by the Mayor of London. Whilst fire safety matters are generally matters reserved for building regulations, fire matters are also required to be assessed through planning policy, including the submission of a fire statement and referral to the London Fire Brigade and Health and Safety Authority. In this instance, such a requirement for a staircase has the potential to affect the layout of the building as it is currently presented, and is accordingly a land use and planning matter. As a result of this new change, council officers requested the applicant undertake an exercise to ensure that the new regulations for a second staircase can be reasonably implemented within the scheme without having a material impact on the proposal as it currently stands. As such, the proposal has some impact on the scheme as it is currently presented, and the new regulation only will affect blocks C1, C5 and D3, as those blocks are the ones that exceed 30 metres in height. I'm just going to go through a few of the floor plans and demonstrate how a second staircase could be accommodated within the floor plans. So the red highlighted area is obviously a location for a secondary means of escape on the ground floor. As you can see within blocks C1 and C5, this may require some redesign of the refuse storage and cycle storage areas. In block D, this will require a redesign of the cold water storage area. As we move up the scheme, we can see on the left-hand side the proposal as is currently presented and an option for providing that second staircase. On both blocks C1 and C5, the flats that are affected are these particular flats here. These are 2-bedroom flats, and in order to accommodate this secondary staircase, this would need to become a 1-bedroom flat. Similarly, on the 10th floor, it's a similar process, and the 2-bedroom flats would need to be amended to 1-bedroom flats. As we go to Block D, alternative is proposed, and effectively increasing one of the eastern walls of Block D to accommodate a secondary staircase in the footprint of a proposed 3-bedroom flat. To make up for the loss of floor space, the 3-bedroom, this wall would need to be slightly extended by between 1 or 2 meters to be able to continue to accommodate a 3-bedroom home with an affordable rent tenure. So as a summary of the implications, there's no loss of affordable housing in comparison to what we are presenting to you this evening. No loss in the number of units. However, there'll be a loss of 28 habitable rooms within private market housing. This actually has the impact that if this scheme were to be delivered as it is presented now, that affordable housing provision by habitable room could potentially increase from 49% to 50%. And changes to comply with these new fire regulations would be considered to be non-material in nature. As a summary again to the potential changes in the housing mix, so as the current submission shows a scheme in favour of 2-bedroom units, and the change required to obviously we discussed that 2-bedroom flats would become 1-bedroom flats, and therefore the proportion of 1-bedroom flats has increased and the proportion of 2-bedroom flats has decreased. In conclusion, the site represents a good design in a desirable and central location close to services, amenities and public transport. The scheme results in an uplifter in the number of units in comparison to the original consented scheme, uplift in heights and a different site layout. However, it is considered these factors have been adequately justified. Accordingly, the officer recommendation for the committee is to grant the principle of development subject to conditions, legal agreement and stage 2 referral, with the final decision delegated to the head of development management in consultation with the chair of planning committee to resolve matters relating to the new fire safety regulations for a second staircase to be provided within buildings over 30 metres. But this would be on the basis there would be no loss of agreed affordable housing. I'd also refer members again to the briefing note, which outlines further information on the fire safety regulations and also includes the amended wording of a number of conditions which have been agreed by the relevant internal consultees. It also corrects some of the affordable housing tables from the committee report, with this corrected information having been included within this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. That was very comprehensive. Couple of things before I start. Councillor Rice and Councillor Mohammed came in after the debate started. You will be able to contribute to the debate, but you won't be able to vote on the debate. And that's unfortunately, that's the way it is. But yes, you're quite enabled to speak and, give your views and ask questions, of course. Okay. Yes, the other thing was, Councillor Kelly actually emailed you and there was correspondence from the site visit, and I would encourage that from all members of the committee in between site visit or any time once they're aware of the planning application that's going to be in front of them to engage with the officers. Okay, that said, questions. Councillor Gordon, Councillor Mohammed, Councillor Anand.
Thank you, Chair.
Keep your hands up if I haven't said your name.
Thanks, Chair. Joel, I've got 3 questions and 2 actually really some clarification. First one is right at the beginning of the presentation, you refer to section 106 covering the additional staircases. I didn't quite get it. You did it very quickly, and if you just go back to that and sort of clarify what you meant by that. That's number 1. Number 2, again back to section 106. There's reference to the carbon dioxide offsetting, and it's £700,000. I don't quite understand how that all works. Can you explain what that actually means? Is there money out there to spend? And then the third question is about Dean Hall and being reallocated onto Romsey Road as part of the reserve matters. Can you just clarify that this application will guarantee that that will happen in the future? Thanks.
Right. I'll take Councillor Mohammed. I'll take Councillor Mohammed and then Councillor Anand and then bring you back, Joel. There's 3 more indicating so far after that as well. So it's manageable.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned that there would be no loss of the number of units after application of second staircase. Can you give us a breakdown of now that some of the units is a reduction 2-bedroom to one bedroom, a breakdown of how many will be home ownership, affordable renting and private? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Anand, have you got several questions or one? Knowing you, it's probably several.
Chair, I've got some points of clarification and a question as well. Firstly, looking at the report, I then went into detail within the documents that support the application. So in the reference of the daylight sunlight report, my question here is that with regards to the expert that did the report, he found that 47% of the habitable rooms of a sample of 15, 7 were found do not have proper daylight assessment or sunlight assessment. Can I just have that clarification? Is that the case just as a sample, or are we going to say that that's the case if it's extrapolated throughout the whole application? So that was my question on the daylight sunlight report. And just as the other points that I picked up was that about the pick up and drop off of residents. It said in the report that it's quite distant away. I mean, how much far is it away with regards to when we have elderly residents that may require ambulance pickups and drop-offs for regular appointments? So that's the, and finally, when we say about the there's no parking provision, just clarification, will there be any disabled parking? Thank you.
Right. Joel, sorry, I'm going to confuse the two. Sorry. Joel, could you address those 3 members' questions, please?
Yes, first question was Councillor Gordon about the clarification on the recommendation. So perhaps it's come across as quite wordy. So what we're saying is the standard recommendation, which you might see a lot, grant in this case in principle, subject to conditions, legal agreement, and stage 2 referral to the GLA. Separate to that, basically we're asking you to delegate the decision to the head of development management in consultation with the chair of planning committee to resolve the fire issues that we are talking about. And then the decision would be made in consultation with the stage 2 of the stage 2 GLA. Does that make sense? So they're separate matters. It might have just come across a bit wordy. I apologize for that.
Just to re-emphasize, there's no loss of social housing when that comes back.
Yeah. So the second question's on the carbon offsetting. So this is an interesting thing that's happened also on one other scheme in Ealing. It's Friary Close, and with these legacy schemes, the ones that were built older, they're quite carbon intensive developments, and in order to be able to provide energy to the new developments, they initially first have to be connected to the energy centre of the earlier phases. We then need at that stage to request a decarbonisation strategy as how they will start to decarbonise the site. The only option available to the developer at the current time is to connect into that existing energy centre. So the carbon emissions seem at the moment higher than they normally would be, and that carbon offsetting contribution may come down based on monitoring in future as decarbonisation strategies are implemented on sites such as air source heat pumps and the like.
Can we bring in Alex? I think just
Yeah, I was just simply going to add, obviously, it's a tariff, obviously calculated on the performance of the building, and in terms of what happens with the financial contribution which is secured, is spent on retrofitting existing affordable homes within the borough.
That's usually what happens. So obviously our intention is obviously to have a smaller amount of carbon offsets, but in some situations that's unavoidable. And we are obviously, as part of the new local plan, seeking to make that less attractive to obviously secure that money. So yeah, it is currently what we do in terms of obviously securing and achieving those offsetting tariffs. Hopefully that answered that question. Thanks.
And on your third question in regards to the reallocation of Dean Hall and a guarantee. So I've asked the applicant on this, and effectively delivery of the replacement of Dean Hall is subject to further negotiation at this stage. So we don't have a time frame on its delivery, and it will actually be delivered by Dean Hall. So it effectively guarantees under this scheme that space is dedicated for communal amenity space, but we don't have those details available to us at this stage. Councillor Mohammed, sort of a question on the no loss of number of units. So the affordable housing units that I've mentioned to you previously remain unchanged if that second staircase gets implemented. It is only the private market housing. And I can go back to this slide, and this summarises the whole estate. So effectively 28 units would reduce from 2-bedroom to 1-bedroom, but these would be private market housing. Affordable housing would remain unchanged from that. Councillor Nund on the daylight and sunlight. So with schemes like this, very large scale schemes, 396 units and testing every single window is not really possible, and therefore the appropriate process is to take a cross section of that. And when we say that 47% don't comply, that doesn't mean it's detrimental. Often it's just a minor deviation from that sort of guidance that we have, and it is just guidance in that respect. It gives us an indication of the quality of those spaces that will be proposed. So that where it doesn't comply, and it seems like 47% is quite high, these non-compliance areas are in very small instances, and the points taken as to where those were tested at potentially the worst case scenario. They weren't picking the best ones, they were picking the worst case scenario ones. The pick up and drop off a residence, so no loading bay is proposed, but I understand that is the case through Greenman Lane as it currently is. The proposal, I'll just go back to this image here. One of your questions about disabled parking. So this secondary route through here, this will be majority disabled parking, and it will be a secondary route, so it won't be filled with traffic, and it will allow people to stop in that particular location and drop off and collect people as well.
Sorry, just on that, are you saying the disabled bays are kind of doubling up as a drop-off pickup? Is that what I understood?
No, they would most likely stop within that particular single lane carriageway.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just making sure that's clear. We have Councillor Shaw, Councillor Mahmood, and Councillor Rice in that order, please. I haven't got any other indications.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A couple of my questions have been covered in terms of the carbon emissions and Dean Hall reprovision. But I did note within the papers that the Met Police had asked for a condition to go on about the developer achieving secure by design. It's something that they're working towards as it is. And so I was wondering what your comments are on that, please.
Okay, Councillor Mahmood.
Yeah, just to quickly, George, could you clarify that do we have a design review panel or community review panel on board, and what are their remarks, or West Ealing neighbourhood plan?
Okay, Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Right, can I just ask about, please, Joel, about the play space, because it looks like, I know it's something I talk about a lot in these meetings, but it does actually appear that there's less play space on site, and the intention is to invest in somewhere outside of the site in order to compensate for that. And the interesting thing is that that was similarly the case for the other item on the agenda, which is we're not discussing tonight. There was going to be a similar situation where there was a lack of play space, so some was going to be invested off-site. Now, I can only assume in that case that what we might end up doing is putting the money into perhaps putting a playground or something into Dean Gardens, or in putting some money into there, or some other similar space in the area. So my concern is that it's something I've talked about, that there's only so far we can go with this, actually putting play space outside of sites, because it's just the outside of sites are there for other reasons as well. I mean, at what point are we actually infringing on the green space when it is actually quite a small area of ground, which just has a real purpose in terms of being a bit of green space along the Uxbridge Road? Thank you.
Right, go ahead. Joel.
So Councillor Shaw's question on secure by design, further the applicant will need to engage with the Metropolitan Police in that regard. There are sort of aspects of the scheme that would need to be refined, but that the purpose of condition 35 is effectively to ensure that they do that and provide evidence to us that they have achieved secure by design accreditation. That will be a separate process that they'll deal directly with the Metropolitan Police on. Councillor Mahmood on the DRP. So, I mean, that is summarised in the report as well. And I mean, there was general support for the scheme from the DRP. This was obviously prior. The DRP took place prior to the current DRP that we have in place, but a special DRP was set up in this case. And the West Ealing Residents Association were consulted, but no response was received. And on the final question on play space, so it's an interesting question, because we're looking when we're calculating the requirement for play space, we are simply it's simply a number. What we need to look at more holistically is the actual quality of the space being provided. So we are in this scheme, it doesn't ordinarily come across, but there is actually space for 11 to 15-year-olds provided within this space, provided in the central public square. There's, as you can see on the particular image we have here, there's children's play space here, and further children's play spaces providing the communal amenity space. So we're not just looking at the numbers, we're looking at the quality of the children's play space that we're providing. Now, the policy does require that where that is not met, a financial contribution should be secured, which is done through standard calculators and formulas. Now, as to where that money will be spent is a decision for that relevant department within the council. So when we are securing these financial contributions on a wide variety of things, that doesn't mean that the developer is paying for a whole playground, for example. They are contributing a portion to what those actual costs would be. And over time, those contributions will build up into something that can be spent. I hope that answers the question.
Councillor Kwanzaa. Councillor Kumar. I see no more indications. I'm going to move on to the debate after that. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. To sort of like develop the last question, I'm sort of like wanting to know whether consideration has been taken into local demographics around Dean Gardens, because there has been a problem with antisocial behaviour. And you talked about 11 to 15-year-olds, there'll be provision in the other development. But I'm thinking in terms of like you have like some problems already noted in Dean Gardens, and you've got, would there be an overload with, say, like, I don't know, it's postcode lotteries, you've got young people coming from outside of that area, and just, are you going to be taken into account that there may be some conflicts? That's my big question, really.
Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on, I know it was a bit fast, but correct me if I've got it wrong, but you mentioned resident permit. How is that going to work? And I saw the cars on the plan, and you've said that those are for disabled, those are disabled bays. So I just need clarification on what you meant when you said, considering that there is demand for parking in that area, how would this resident permit thing work? And my other question was on fire and water storage. So you addressed the fire thing. What's brought about the redesigning? Was there anything specific, or was it a bigger problem? It'd be good to know. Thank you.
On the site visit, we did talk quite a lot about why the fire changes. And obviously I note obviously that you weren't there. So yeah, it's a fair question. We should probably have brought that up tonight. So that the whole committee know. That's a fair question. So start at the top, please. The antisocial behaviour.
Yeah, so the first question on antisocial behaviour. So the way I take this question is the concern that there's existing antisocial behaviour. The space is open, could encourage more. These matters are sort of addressed through that what we referred to before as the secure by design standards that are undertaken with the Metropolitan Police. So there are aspects that discourage that, and that is part of the built environment, and that needs to be built into that. So those intricate details of how we could discourage antisocial behaviour within the estate would be subject to that. Obviously, the planning system can't control the behaviour of people, but we can try wherever possible to design out opportunities for that antisocial behaviour to occur.
I was just going to say also, obviously, when we get to that point around the council making decisions on providing new or improved play space, those issues will be looked at as part of those design considerations at the appropriate time. So it is an important factor that we would obviously look at in detail at the appropriate time, and also taking advice from statutory consultees such as the police, etc. as well. I'll cover off the fire stuff, because I think Councillor Kumar, I appreciate that you were not able to attend the site visit, and we did talk about this and start to talk about what the issues were. We've also included quite a detailed chronology in the briefing notes just to set the scene as well, so it's very clear. But this is a situation which there's no right answer at the moment. However, in response to the consultation which is being undertaken by government, and a statement that's been made by the Chief Fire Brigade officers, there is a bit of conflict, and nothing is set in stone. However, it looks like we're moving to a situation where a second staircase requirement is almost certainly going to be required on buildings of over 30 metres in due course. However, it's not settled. So there have been different responses within the development industry about how to incorporate this. And this has only just recently come about, and it's obviously heightened just before Christmas, obviously early January. All authorities are trying to work this out. So that's the reason why at very great haste, the applicants in response to this current application you're looking at have done a lot of work to look at how they can accommodate it, but it will be something that a number of schemes will need to obviously be revisited, and we'll have to go through this process. This is in addition to other fire requirements that have been added into and required, following Grenfell, such as things like the second, fire evacuation lift, etc., which is already incorporated into the scheme. So that's the reason for it. We're preempting a direction of travel, and obviously it is a material consideration in determining applications whether the scheme that you're being asked to look at is an implementable scheme. What we are saying is that it is possible for this scheme to be implemented in terms of unit numbers, and obviously the 10-year split. There will be some minor alterations which affect purely the market housing component of the scheme. So in the grand scheme of things, we think it's still acceptable, which is why we've altered the recommendation in the briefing notes to seek those very minor changes in consultation with the chair. And that will also be following any consultation responses from obviously the relevant authorities such as the GLA at the stage 2 section, and also consultation responses from the London Fire Brigade and Health and Safety Executive. So that's what we've kind of agreed. No formal announcements have been made from the GLA, but this is what we understand is what's going to happen. So we're trying to respond as quickly as we can. As you're aware, the scheme that we're looking at tonight is very well advanced. This is the very final stage, and which is why the application is being considered tonight in order to kind of work through that programme. I hope that answers the question, but we've given this quite a lot of thought, and we did make sure that the committee were fully aware of this quite important change and consideration that you needed to be aware of.
And that isn't the start, that's the start of the process rather than the end. So it'll carry on going. So I'm just going to bring across, where are we? So you had another one about residence permits.
So as is detailed in the report, the proposal would deliver, some residents that we will be returning to the site, the social rent re-provision, and many of these residents would have existing parking permits. Now, in that particular instance, we don't know who has a parking permit, but we can only estimate based on best available data. And the transport assessment included an assessment of that, and it's likely around this amount based on the area and car ownership in the area to determine what's an appropriate amount. How those spaces will be allocated will be detailed throughout the car parking management strategy, which has been requested as a condition, and that approach has generally been supported by the GLA. So right now we don't know how those car parking spaces will be allocated, but that detail will be forthcoming to us.
What we're trying to say, I think, is that existing residents are entitled and potentially will have a space coming back to, although there's nothing formalised at the moment.
We just don't know who owns a car,
but
which existing residents own a car. So we have to.
New residents, where would they stand in the permit situation? Are they excluded from permits?
Correct. So it's in a high PTAL area, public transport accessibility levels. So we generally encourage, where possible, car-free development. Obviously, this site is very close to the Crossrail station and high-frequency bus services on Uxbridge Road, Broadway. So we need to, encourage that modal shift within the community to more sustainable forms of transportation through cycle parking and things like that, active travel through the area.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that brings an end to the questions. So I'm going to open up to debate. Councillor Anand, Councillor Brett. Hold on, keep your hands up, sorry. Fire away, Councillor Anand.
Thank you, Chair. I do actually am welcoming the much needed housing this application is proposing. And it is something that I will be voting for. However, I'm torn with the fact that there are some issues that actually are of concern, and hope that this can be brought to attention in future applications, because currently this application is a very high building, although it's been said it fits in line. However, our local plan is diverting away from that high that we actually are proposing. But because there's still ambiguity and there is much more needed housing in this development, I will be supporting that. But also going back to another point, which is also I've found in a lot of applications, is that the provision generally for play areas are compromised every time. And we need to consider and focus on that we do want to have more play area for the residents. And by just compromising and putting money into something else and building those other play areas that are existing is actually just putting more strain. So I think in future, not this application, but we should be mindful of what comes forward to committee. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brett next. I'll just urge the committee not to repeat what's already been said, if they can. I'm not saying you're going to, I'm just saying.
I was actually going to withdraw because the councillor has already kind of said what I wanted to say.
Sorry, I wasn't jumping the gun there, sorry. I was just minded that, okay, thank you for that. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. So if I need to declare, I've been the ward's councillor for Elthorpe, now Hanwell Broadway, so covering the Green Manor estate since 2010. So I've seen the estate completely redeveloped. And I think we need to see this application in that context as well, that we have several phases which have hugely enhanced West Ealing, more importantly, have enhanced the lives of the residents. And I see this as the next block. So I think I would very much welcome it, notwithstanding there are one or two issues with the development. And also just to put in context what it is going to replace is Tinton Court, which is as poor a bit of social housing as you can get anywhere. It's been the magnet for virtually all the antisocial behaviour in the ward. It's appalling living conditions, appalling levels of maintenance. So I think we heartily welcome the demolition of the existing buildings. And I think anything will be better, but I think this will be significantly better. So I do welcome it. I do have a slight concern that we are putting a 16-storey, 30-metre block in the middle, which is out of keeping with the existing parts of the redevelopment. I understand the reasons why. I understand we can't do a lot about it, but rather it was a little bit shorter, but notwithstanding that will be, it has to go. I also welcome the mix that we will have 129 affordable homes. I'd rather it be a higher percentage, but I understand the economics of it. Notwithstanding a few of my slight quibbles with the project, I think it's really good and I'll happily support it.
Yeah, Councillor Bustilli. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I've got to say, I think this is one application that I've got absolutely no qualms with, and I think it's a pretty decent application we've got in front of us here. I understand Councillor Gordon's and Councillor Annan's concerns about the height, but as we all know here, with any development, there's a bit of give or take here. Now, I laud any development that reaches near or even over the 50% mark for affordable. It will become 50% if we have to put that second staircase in by default. And unlike some previous applications, is that I think the tenure mix in this particular development is just about right. So there's nothing really, in my own opinion, to dislike about this development, and I'm minded to vote for it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, I welcome this application. I echo Councillor Gordon's comments just on terms of the provision of social housing and regenerating the estates. I think, of course, I would like higher levels of affordable housing, but I think, you know, around the 50% level is actually a good achievement. You know, it's much better than some of the applications that have passed previously that are sort of around the 30 or 35%. So I welcome those. I also note a good number of 3-bedroom provision and welcome the sort of the corrected figures that show that there's sort of 11 properties there that are actually 4-bedroom as well. So, you know, we know that those sort of larger families are particularly difficult to house in the provision that there is in the borough at the moment, and we do need more sort of bigger spaces for them. So I will be voting in favour of this.
Thank you. Last but not least, Councillor Kelly.
Yes, so put it into context, and Councillor Gordon says since 2010, and remember what was there before, and some of us remember what was there before the Green Man Lane estate, and it was, and it was, to paraphrase Star Wars, Den of Iniquity behind there. It was pretty bad. So it is a great improvement. Lots been made of Dean's Gardens, and this was brought up at the things. Lots has happened in Dean's Garden. It's been a perennial hotspot for antisocial behaviour. There were street drinkers there 40 years ago, and there's street drinkers there today. And I think the play areas that have been introduced in recent developments they're really helpful. I would have loved to have had a play area in my road, you know, and these people have now got a play area in their road, and they don't have to go to the park where there's often antisocial behaviour. And Walpole councillors are always dealing, I guess, with the problems around Dean's Gardens. I love 50% affordable housing, brilliant. And we've also got, architectural parity of esteem. So you don't know which one is affordable, which one isn't. And that's really important to sort of have a sustainable community. No more poor doors. It's all looks the same. Councillor Nand, quite like you asked questions about drop off. I mean, it's not a big issue because, you know, anybody who's state-rated and vulnerable, they have a risk assessment, and you can actually entitled to stop your vehicle in the middle of the road to load and unload people. That is perfectly legal, and you can do that. So it's not perfect, but I don't think it's an unsurmountable challenge. Good application. I talked about the height. It's not what we used to. And there is a bit of misalignment perhaps with what the emerging policy, but it's no grounds to not grant this application. So I'd be very happy to grant this application.
Okay, Councillor Mohammed, last but not least.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say I will be voting for this in spirit. I know I can't vote, but it is I support the scheme purely because of the fire safety legislation is changing. It is very important that we are ahead of the schedule because it's 99% sure that it will be going that way, and hope that this is first of many to adopt this kind of approach to make sure it's simply a matter of saving lives, worst case scenario. So for that reason, I fully endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't hear any voices against this scheme, so I'm probably going to go straight to the vote. Okay, just as you know, Councillor Rice, Councillor Mohammed, you cannot vote. All the rest of the committee, please indicate if they're in favour of this application. All those against? No. Any abstentions? Right, the maths work. Right. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time this evening. It's been a cold evening out there, so enjoy the rest of what your evening entails. Thank you. The next planning committee is by beginning of March. 1st, is it? 1st of March, for those who want to note that in their diary, although it's already in their diary anyway. Sorry? No, it's a leap year.